Recorded Books and RB Digital present Before Anyone Else by Leslie Hooton, narrated by Justice Bolding. Chapter 1. As I walked into Vere, memories washed over me. They filled me with unmitigated delight. But, if I'm being perfectly honest, they also filled me with just a little disgust. 2/3 standing water, 1 part full-blown tsunami. I made my way to the bar. The bartender grinned at me and said, "Merry Christmas." He added, "The usual?" Although it wasn't a question. I grinned back. My heart had never been immune to Griffin Hardwick. If Griffin and I were a married couple, we may have kissed each other when he handed me the cocktail. We weren't married. We weren't even a couple. Were we? "I would have picked you up at the airport," Griffin said. "And deprive these patrons of Atlanta's most underrated?" I started quoting Atlanta's magazine profile piece on Griffin and my brother Henry. "Bartender," Griffin said humbly. "Mixologist," I corrected. As I rolled my suitcase into the office, I took another look around. Nope. The green looked faded and washed out. The fixtures and hardware looked downright decrepit. I still disagreed with the vibe of Vere, the boys' first restaurant. They had hired Julian Palmer to create the design. He was the best restaurant designer in the business. I should know. I worked for him in New York. He was a good boss. He believed in brands and did an extraordinary job of branding his restaurants. My brother, Henry, and Griffin may have come up with the name Vere, but the next restaurant, Julian named Blanc. After that, he came up with their nickname, the Color Wheel Boys, and it stuck. They were famous not only in Atlanta, but around the country as well. I closed the door to the office and relaxed on the sofa. I took a satisfying sip of my drink, a sidecar. Griffin had first made it for me when I was just 18, before anyone else, and it had become my signature cocktail. I fished around in my purse and fingered the piece of paper a little longer than I should have. I couldn't get Griffin's signature drink in New York, but I wanted to be the next Julian Palmer, and I couldn't do that in Atlanta. And I wanted it more. But there was Griffin. My heart had a stubborn gravitational pull toward him. Not only had Griffin made my signature cocktail before anyone else, he was the epicenter of all my important firsts. My first driving lesson, my first crush, my first kiss. The first person to recognize that I had design talent. The first man I had ever been with. The same night he concocted the sidecar for me. I allowed the memory to keep me company, as it always had. Comfort food. The boys were home from Cornell for the summer. It was the eve of my 18th birthday, and Griffin let me be his taster for a few of his concoctions. My brother was out on a date. Cooking, drinking, and women. My brother had a talent for each. Griffin and I were at my house experimenting with things like Maker's Mark and honeydew and mint sorbet. It was a much better way to spend the evening than being at some lame prom. "Are you sorry you didn't go to prom?" Griffin asked loudly over the blender, where he was crushing ice for a new drink for me to try. Sometimes I think my men felt guilty that they had not exposed me to the normal highlights of childhood. I considered Griffin's question as I watched him concoct his drink. He took a shaker and combined Maker's Mark and other ingredients. If my brother favored scotch, I tended to prefer good bourbon. I had learned to be picky about my whiskey.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.